With an exciting week 2 in the books, me and Seth are going to dive right into week 3, starting in Dallas, where the Dallas Cowboys will play the Atlanta Falcons. Seth, what do you see happening in this game?
Well, obviously, the Cowboys are without their quarterback, Tony Romo. He's got his second broken clavicle of his career. I think they're going to have to rely on their defense if they want to beat this tough Falcons team.
Definitely. I actually think that Atlanta will edge the Cowboys in this one simply because they got Brandon Weeden at quarterback right now. As you said, Tony Romo is hurt. Their running game kind of hasn't really gotten going yet. In Atlanta, they're coming off 2 big wins, especially last week against my Giants, beating them. So I think that Atlanta will end up beating the Cowboys this week. Another big game this week is the New Orleans Saints traveling to Carolina to play the 2-0 Panthers. What do you see happening in this game?
Well, I see the Panthers coming away with a win in this game. Cam Newton's playing with a lot of momentum. He had a great game against the Texans this past Sunday. And Drew Brees didn't look good, left the game with an injury against the Buccaneers. So I think the Panthers are going to run away with this one.
Yeah, actually, I don't know if Drew Brees is if he's playing this week, but I'm pretty sure that he's kind of doubtful right now and if he's going to play. So I think that factors in. Not only that, their defense didn't really look that good against Jameis Winston last week. I think Cam Newton is really going to have a field day, and I think the Panthers are going to win this game pretty handily, in my opinion. The Minnesota Vikings are going to play host to the San Diego Chargers this week in a very big interconference game. I personally believe that the Minnesota Vikings will get their second win of the season simply because Adrian Peterson, he kind of got it going. Last week he had 134 yards on, I believe, 29 carries. And I think that formula, along with the Teddy Bridgewater getting it going in the passing game, will just be too much for the San Diego Chargers to handle. What do you see happening, Seth?
I don't agree with that. I think that Phillip Rivers is going to lead the Chargers to a pretty resounding win.
Resounding. Okay, well, we'll definitely see about that. Another big game this week another big interconference game this week is the Pittsburgh Steelers traveling to St. Louis to play the Rams. A Rams team who they're kind of giving us different looks this year. One week they beat Seattle in a very big game. Next week they're losing to the Washington Redskins, who lost to my Giants on Thursday night. So I don't know. The Rams are kind of looking a little mediocre right now. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to win this week simply because they also have Le'Veon Bell coming back from suspension this week. And I think if they get him going in the offense, along with Ben Roethlisberger and Antonio Brown, it's going to be a very productive formula for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Like you said, Nick Foles still kind of new to the system. We'll have to see if he can make the plays to keep up with Big Ben and the Steelers.
Speaking of a team that's trying to get used to a new system, the San Francisco 49ers are going to be traveling to Arizona this week to play the Cardinals. I personally believe that Arizona will beat the 49ers pretty handily in this one simply because the Cardinals, they're really riding high with Carson Palmer leading the way. Larry Fitzgerald really helped my fantasy team out last week, having 30 points and having 3 touchdowns. And I think if the Cardinals continue doing that, and with that, having a great defense led by Patrick Peterson, they're going to pretty much beat the 49ers pretty handily, in my opinion.
That's right. I'm looking for Carson Palmer to take this game away. I just don't think that the 49ers have recovered since they lost Frank Gore and Jim Harbaugh last season.
Yeah, same here. Those were very big losses. And speaking of a team who's taken a few big losses, the Seattle Seahawks will have their first home game in Seattle this week as they play the Chicago Bears, another 0-2 team. What do you see transpiring in that game?
Well, Jay Cutler's out with an injury, and I honestly think that with the return of Cam Chancellor to the Legion of Boom, Jimmy Clausen's just going to get the crap kicked out of him.
Yeah, same here. I think that it's going to be a really tough day for Jimmy Clausen. Not just Cam Chancellor, you got Earl Thomas, Richard Sherman. These guys are very, very angry because they're 0-2 right now. They've lost to Green Bay and St. Louis. I think Russell Wilson will have a big game, big bounce-back game. He'll get Jimmy Graham involved. Hopefully Marshawn Lynch will play. He's questionable right now with an injury, but I think he'll play, and I think he'll have about 2 touchdowns, and I think Seattle will end up dominating the Chicago Bears in this game. The last NFC game this week will be the Denver Broncos traveling to Detroit to play the Lions in a game that is pretty much shaping up to be a pretty smash-mouth affair. What do you see transpiring in that game?
I don't think it'll be too much of a smash-mouth affair. Both the teams like to go to their air game Obviously, Calvin Johnson and Matthew Stafford being a pretty good connection. I want to say they connected for 5,000 yards not too long ago.
Yeah, they did.
And then you've got Peyton Manning, who's always going to the air. Monty Ball does all right, but as far as that game goes, I'd say they're going to stick to the air game more. And I want to say Detroit will come out on top. They looked a little flat in that Vikings game. And I think they're going to get the jump on Peyton and the boys this time.
Oh, man, I actually disagree with you simply because even though Denver, they're kind of getting used to Gary Kubiak's new system and everything. So that's why I said it might be a little bit of a smash mouth affair between them and Detroit. Detroit known for having a very tough defense and everything. But I think ultimately this week, Peyton Manning, he'll get it going along with Demaryius Thomas and the rest of that Broncos offense. And I think even with that Broncos defense, I think that they'll outplay the Detroit Lions offense. I think Denver will end up coming out on top in this game.
Fair enough.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. It should be a great week in the NFC. And for those of you who love fantasy football, our boy Dalton is going to give you some of his takes this week in fantasy.
Thanks, Chandler. For all things fantasy, I'm your guy. First, I want to start out with talking about PPR plays this week. I like Danny Woodhead versus Minnesota because behind Keenan Allen, he's the second most targeted player on that team. And the next player I want to talk about is Jarvis Landry out of Miami. He catches a ton of passes every single game, so look for him to have about probably 8 catches with 100 yards. That's a reasonable game. And then the next player I want to talk about is the tight end from Pittsburgh, Heath Miller. He might not score a lot of touchdowns, but he certainly has a lot of catches. And so if you're looking for a sneaky tight end play, that's who I would go with. And then next, I want to move into my locks of the week, and this is basically the players that I can guarantee are going to have a big game. DeAndre Hopkins is playing Tampa Bay, and Tampa Bay's secondary is awful. And DeAndre Hopkins kind of had a down week last week, so look for him to rebound this week. And then my quarterback lock is Carson Palmer. He's playing San Francisco, and let's be honest, Carson Palmer has started off this season insanely hot. And then moving on to running backs, Latavius Murray from Oakland, he had a good game last week. He finally got a season going. He scored a touchdown and had like 65 yards rushing. So look for him to continue that hot streak against the Browns. And then Mark Ingram has completely dominated the Panthers throughout his career. So look for another repeat performance of that again. And Melvin Gordon finally showed promise. And we were all looking for him to have this huge, explosive rookie season. And I think now it's finally going to start. So I really like his matchup versus Minnesota. And then next, I want to move into another tight end, which is Kyle Rudolph. And Eric Ebron in week 1 destroyed San Diego's secondary with their tight end. And so I'm looking for Kyle Rudolph to have a huge bounce-back game. And then a couple of defenses to target. Houston versus Tampa Bay. Jameis Winston hasn't faced an elite defense yet. And I think Houston's going to they have a very, very good shot at getting a pick 6. And then Arizona versus San Francisco, that's another good lock. And Seattle versus Chicago, I mean, it's at Seattle, and they're playing a backup quarterback. That's going to be a huge game for them. A couple sleepers to play, James Starks. Depending on whether or not Eddie Lacy is injured or not, I like his matchup this week. And Crockett Gilmore, a tight end from the Ravens, he finally showed out last week. He had 2 touchdowns. And then Rashard Matthews from Miami also. He's been putting up consistent points, probably 10 to 15 every single week. If you're looking for a sneaky defense play Minnesota versus San Diego. It's at the Superdome, and Phillip Rivers at times can be quite turnover prone. And next, I want to go into the daily leagues, DraftKings, which is what I use personally. It's my favorite. And here, I would say Terrence Williams for $4,600. That's a really, really, really good bargain. And then Le'Veon Bell's coming back, and he's playing St. Louis. It's going to be his first game back, and they have him priced at $7,600, which all of last year he was consistently between $9,000 and $10,000. So that's a very, very good bargain for him. And then Blake Bortles versus New England. I feel like the Jaguars are going to get behind, and Blake Bortles is going to have to just throw it up. So look for about 300 yards and maybe 3 touchdowns will be a good game for him. And then tight end Martellus Bennett, because DraftKings is PPR, he catches a lot of passes, so he's a very, very good play at $4,600. And then last, I'm going to go into my dislikes of the week. And the first is DeMarco Murray versus the New York Jets. First of all, I don't even know whether or not he's going to play because he's questionable right now. And even if he was, the Jets have a top 2 run defense, so it's definitely not a good matchup. And next is the defense. Buffalo seems to be a hot play, but because they're playing Miami, it's not a smart move because Tannehill should light up the offense. And then next is Stafford versus Denver. He's a little bit banged up right now, and Stafford didn't have a good week last week, and he tends to turn the ball over a lot, which has been his downfall throughout his career. And next, I want to say Jordan Matthews. Do not play him because he's going to be on Revis Island, meaning he'll be lucky to have 2 catches. And then last, Larry Fitzgerald versus San Francisco. I know he blew up last week with 3 touchdowns, but that's not going to happen again. It was kind of a fluke. And then also, what I'm going to end with is TJ Yeldon, the running back from Jacksonville versus New England. Obviously, don't play him because Jacksonville's going to be down and they're going to be forced to abandon the run and air it out for the rest of the game. Well, hopefully that helps you win your leagues this week. And now let's kick it over to D'Angelo and Lorento for their AFC predictions.
Hello guys, Lorento Campbell here.
And I'm D'Angelo Stevenson.
And we're here for our AFC preview as we do each and every week.
Cincinnati is going to Baltimore this week. Andy Dalton looked very impressive with his go-to target, A.J. Green.
And the Baltimore Ravens looked the exact opposite. They looked very bad last week in their embarrassing loss to the Oakland Raiders.
I think Cincinnati is going to keep it rolling. They're 2-0. They're really hot. Defense is hot. I think they're going to just keep it moving.
Baltimore, I don't know what to say about them. Their loss to Oakland, they're not looking good. And Andy Dalton always looks good in the regular season. So I believe they're going to take this game. I got Cincinnati winning this one 21-7.
I agree with you, but I got Cincinnati winning 28-10.
Our next game is the Oakland Raiders versus the Cleveland Browns. How do you feel about that one?
Oakland put on a pretty impressive show last week. Many people it was a shocker.
And the Browns also shocked a lot of people going against the Jets behind the arm of Johnny Manziel. This week, they say Josh McCown is going to be the starter. To me, I believe it's a mistake.
But Josh McCown, he's a veteran, so he knows the system very well. So I think he's going to get the job done.
So I believe that's going to be the mistake that really hurts Cleveland this week. I believe Oakland's going to get the win 28-21.
I also believe Oakland's going to get the win 28-21.
All right, this next game could pan out to be a big one between 2 young quarterbacks in the same division between Marcus Mariota and Andrew Luck. How do you feel about this one?
This is an important game for Indy. Let alone if they don't win this game, they will fall behind in their division against Houston, Tennessee, and Jacksonville.
I believe last week you picked Indianapolis to win the blowout one, didn't you?
Not going to go into detail with that.
I understand, but this one right here, I've been behind the Colts all season. I'm still going to be behind the Colts. I still believe they're a Super Bowl contending team, so I believe this is the game that they really get over the hump and finally get their first win against the Tennessee Titans, 21-20.
I think Indy take this team 28-7.
Our next matchup is a David and Goliath one between New England and the Jacksonville Jaguars.
I think Jacksonville has a pretty impressive defense this year, but they are no match for the high and fighting Tom Brady.
Yeah, this is the matchup where David is going to lose this one. New England, I believe they're going to take it 35-7.
I think New England take this game 28-7.
Our next game is a battle up north between the Jets and the Philadelphia Eagles.
As of right now, I think New York has one of the best defenses in the NFL, plus a pretty impressive offense.
And the Eagles, they're really just an all-talk team. And the Jets, to go along with their defense, we really have to commend their offense because every single time they get a turnover, they're doing really, really good and capitalizing on those turnovers. So this game right here, I believe the Jets are going to take this one. I'll say 28-21.
With DeMarco Murray running for 2 yards last week against Dallas, I don't think they have a chance against New York. I got New York going 28-0.
Our next game could be another divisional game that can pan out to be a big one. We got 2 very improved teams in Miami and Buffalo.
This is what I call the most improved game with 2 most improved teams. Tyrod Taylor is a dual threat in the NFL, both on the pass and the run. And Ryan Tannehill is looking hot with one of the hottest offenses in Miami.
Improve is definitely the correct phrase from this. Tyrod Taylor, even though Madden has went from like a 76 to an 85 with the updates. So I believe these 2 teams right here, this is going to be a very, very big game to watch out for. I believe that Buffalo is going to overtake Miami, though, in this one and win 28-24.
I'm going to have to disagree. I think it's going to be a close game, but I think Miami takes it 28-21.
Well, that's all we have for today. On behalf of Capital City Sports, I'm Lorento.
I'm D'Angelo Stevenson.
And we'll see you next week.